There are tractors sitting in barns across rural America that have outlived presidents, survived recessions, weathered droughts, and worked through generations of the same family. Their paint is faded. Their seats are cracked. Some bear dents from jobs completed decades ago. Yet every spring, when planting season arrives, many of these machines still start with a turn of the key, or sometimes the pull of a lever, and head back into the fields. To an outsider, it can seem irrational. Modern tractors are larger, faster, quieter, more comfortable, and packed with technology that farmers in the 1980s could hardly have imagined. Today's machines can steer themselves using satellites, monitor soil conditions in real time, and communicate with farm management software hundreds of miles away. Agricultural manufacturers present them as the future of farming. Yet across much of the United States, thousands of farmers continue relying on tractors that were built 40, 50, and sometimes even 60 years ago. Many refuse to sell them. The reason is not nostalgia alone. It is a story that stretches far beyond machinery. It touches economics, independence, changing rural culture, corporate control, and a growing divide between technological progress and practical reality. To understand why an old tractor remains one of the most valuable possessions on many American farms, you have to look beyond the metal itself and examine what has changed in agriculture and what has been lost along the way. On a cold morning in Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, or countless other farming communities scattered across the American heartland, it is still common to see tractors built during the 1970s and 1980s performing everyday work. They haul feed, pull wagons, mow fields, move hay bales, and prepare land for planting. Some have accumulated tens of thousands of operating hours. By conventional standards, many of these machines should have been retired long ago. Instead, they remain essential. The roots of this loyalty can be traced back to one of the most difficult periods in modern American agricultural history. During the 1970s, farming experienced an extraordinary boom. Global demand for American grain surged, land values climbed rapidly, banks encouraged expansion, farmers borrowed money to buy additional acreage, larger equipment, and new infrastructure. Agricultural optimism spread across rural America. For a time, it seemed like prosperity would continue indefinitely. Then the 1980s arrived. Interest rates soared, commodity prices collapsed, land values fell, farm debt became overwhelming. Thousands of families found themselves struggling to survive financially. The farm crisis that unfolded during that decade left deep scars across rural communities. Many farmers learned a lesson that would influence purchasing decisions for the rest of their lives. Debt can destroy a farm faster than poor weather. That lesson remains alive today. When older farmers talk about equipment, they often do not begin with horsepower or technology. They begin with payments. A tractor purchased 40 years ago may have been expensive at the time, but eventually it became fully owned. No monthly bill, no financing contract, no obligation to generate enough income to justify a six-figure investment. Ownership meant freedom. That freedom became increasingly valuable as machinery prices climbed. In recent years, the cost of a new high-horsepower tractor has reached levels that would have seemed almost unimaginable to previous generations. Depending on specifications, some modern machines can cost as much as a house in many parts of America. For large corporate operations managing thousands of acres, such investments may make economic sense. For smaller family farms, the calculation looks very different. A 40-year-old tractor that continues doing its job reliably can represent one of the smartest financial decisions available. And reliability is where the conversation becomes especially interesting. Many tractors built during the 1970s and 1980s emerged during a period when manufacturers prioritized mechanical simplicity. Engines relied on straightforward fuel systems. Hydraulic components could often be repaired without specialized computers. Electrical systems were relatively uncomplicated. When something broke, farmers frequently fixed it themselves. That capability was not merely convenient. It became part of the culture. Rural America developed a tradition of self-reliance that extended beyond farming itself. Mechanical knowledge passed from parents to children. Repair manuals sat on workshop shelves. Tools accumulated over decades. A breakdown during harvest could threaten an entire season. Waiting days for a technician was rarely an attractive option. Older tractors fit naturally into this environment because they were designed for owners who expected to maintain their own equipment. Modern machinery increasingly operates under a different philosophy. Today's tractors contain advanced electronics, proprietary software, sensors, emission systems, and integrated computer networks. These technologies offer significant advantages in efficiency and productivity, yet they also introduce new dependencies. In some cases, diagnosing a problem requires specialized software available only through authorized dealers. A farmer who spent decades repairing machinery independently may suddenly find himself unable to fix equipment he legally owns. For many, that shift feels significant. The debate eventually became large enough to influence national discussions surrounding the growing right-to-repair movement. Farmers argued that ownership should include the ability to diagnose and repair machinery without unnecessary restrictions. Manufacturers pointed to safety concerns, software integrity, and increasingly complex engineering requirements. The disagreement revealed something larger than a dispute about tractors. It exposed competing visions of control. One vision emphasizes technological integration and centralized support. The other values independence, local knowledge, and practical repairability. Old tractors often sit at the center of that conflict. A machine built in 1982 does not require a software update before entering a field. It does not depend on subscription services. It does not communicate with remote servers. Its owner understands every sound, vibration, and mechanical quirk because years of experience have created a relationship that modern equipment rarely has time to develop. And relationships matter more in farming than many outsiders realize. A tractor is not simply a tool. For many families, it becomes part of the farm's history. The same machine that planted crops for a father may later be operated by a son or daughter. Scratches on the bodywork tell stories. Repairs recall difficult seasons. Every modification reflects a specific need, solved by someone who knew the land intimately. Over time, the machine becomes something closer to a working archive. That emotional attachment alone would not be enough to keep these tractors in service if they failed consistently. The remarkable reality is that many continue performing exactly as intended decades after leaving the factory. And that durability raises a question that extends far beyond agriculture. In an era when technology changes constantly, why do some of the most experienced farmers in America continue trusting machines built before the internet, before GPS guidance, and before digital agriculture became a multi-billion-dollar industry? The answer reveals not only how farming has changed, but also why many farmers believe some of the most important lessons about equipment were learned long ago. To understand why these machines continue earning their place on American farms, it helps to step into the daily reality of agricultural work. Farming rarely operates according to ideal schedules. Weather changes unexpectedly, equipment fails at inconvenient moments, commodity prices move without warning, fuel costs rise, labor becomes difficult to find. Every growing season introduces variables that cannot be controlled. In that environment, predictability becomes one of the most valuable qualities a machine can possess. Many farmers know their older tractors with remarkable precision. They can recognize a problem from the sound of an engine Before any warning light would appear, they know which parts wear fastest, which bolts loosen over time, and which maintenance routines prevent expensive failures. Decades of familiarity create confidence. That confidence is difficult to assign a dollar value to, but it influences decisions every year. A farmer preparing thousands of acres for planting may trust a machine from 1985 because it has already proven itself through 40 planting seasons. The tractor's limitations are well understood. Its strengths are known. Spare parts may already be sitting on shelves inside the workshop. Replacing that certainty with unfamiliar technology is not always an obvious improvement, especially when margins are tight. Outside agriculture, people often imagine farmers benefiting directly whenever food prices rise. The reality is considerably more complicated. Modern farming operates within a web of expenses that have expanded dramatically over the past several decades. Seed costs have increased, fertilizer expenses fluctuate with global energy markets, land values have climbed, insurance costs continue rising, interest rates influence nearly every major investment decision. Equipment represents only one piece of the financial puzzle, but it is often one of the largest. A new tractor can require an investment of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Add specialized implements, financing costs, maintenance contracts, and insurance requirements, and the total commitment grows rapidly. For some operations, the productivity gains justify the expense. For others, especially smaller family farms, the numbers are less convincing. An older tractor that has already paid for itself many times over can remain economically attractive even if it lacks modern efficiencies. The machine may consume slightly more fuel, it may operate more slowly, it may not include climate-controlled cabins or advanced guidance systems. Yet if it accomplishes the required work without creating additional debt, many farmers consider that a worthwhile trade. This mindset became particularly visible after the agricultural consolidation trends that accelerated during the late 20th century. Over the past several decades, the number of farms in the United States has steadily declined, while average farm size has increased. Larger operations often possess greater access to capital, allowing them to adopt new technologies more rapidly. Smaller farms face different realities. Many survive through careful financial management rather than aggressive expansion. In these operations, longevity becomes a competitive advantage. Equipment that lasts 40 years reduces capital expenses. Equipment that can be repaired locally reduces downtime. Equipment that remains functional after decades of use represents a form of resilience that many farmers deeply respect. That respect is reflected in the used equipment market. Across rural America, auctions frequently attract buyers willing to pay substantial sums for well-maintained tractors from specific decades. Certain models have developed near-legendary reputations. Machines built by companies such as John Deere, International Harvester, Case IH, and Massey Ferguson continue commanding strong demand decades after production ended. Collectors contribute to this demand, but working farmers remain a major force behind it. Many buyers are not searching for museum pieces. They want machines that can start tomorrow morning and go to work. Some tractors have become so sought after that their values have remained remarkably stable. In certain cases, owners who purchased equipment decades ago have watched those machines appreciate instead of depreciate. That is unusual in the world of industrial equipment. Most machinery loses value steadily over time. Yet tractors with reputations for durability, mechanical simplicity, and repairability often occupy a category of their own. The phenomenon reveals an important truth about rural decision-making. Farmers tend to evaluate equipment differently than manufacturers market it. Advertising often focuses on innovation. Farmers often focus on reliability. Those priorities overlap sometimes, but not always. A technological feature that appears impressive during a product demonstration may matter less than a proven engine capable of operating for thousands of hours without major repairs. This difference in perspective becomes particularly visible during harvest season. Harvest is not merely another task on the calendar. It represents the culmination of months of investment, labor, and uncertainty. When crops are ready, timing becomes critical. Rain can damage quality, early snow can create complications, market conditions may change, every day matters. During these periods, simplicity can become an advantage. An older tractor with fewer electronic systems may offer fewer points of failure. If something goes wrong, repairs may be completed in a farm workshop rather than requiring specialized diagnostic equipment. That practical reality explains why many farms maintain mixed fleets. The newest equipment handles tasks where advanced technology delivers clear benefits. Older tractors remain available as dependable backups. Sometimes those backups become indispensable. Stories circulate across farming communities of modern equipment sidelined by electronic faults, while machines built decades earlier continue operating without interruption. Whether every story grows slightly in the retelling hardly matters. The underlying lesson resonates because it reflects genuine experience. Reliability earns trust. Trust earns longevity. And longevity creates loyalty. There is another factor that rarely appears in equipment brochures. Many farmers view older tractors as symbols of a period when agricultural technology evolved at a different pace. Machines introduced during the 1970s and 1980s represented significant engineering achievements, but they generally remained understandable to the people operating them. Owners could study service manuals and genuinely comprehend how systems functioned. Mechanical knowledge translated directly into practical capability. That connection fostered a sense of ownership, extending beyond legal possession. Farmers did not simply use their tractors. They understood them. As agriculture became increasingly digital, some operators welcomed the changes enthusiastically. Others felt a growing distance between themselves and the machinery they relied upon. Neither perspective is entirely right or wrong. Modern equipment delivers extraordinary capabilities that previous generations could scarcely imagine. At the same time, older tractors preserve a form of independence that many farmers continue to value deeply. The tension between those two realities has shaped countless equipment decisions across rural America. And as new technologies continue entering agriculture, from automation to artificial intelligence, the question becomes even more relevant. Because the debate is no longer only about tractors. It is about what farmers believe they should control, what they are willing to outsource, and what kind of future they want for the next generation working the land. That future remains uncertain. Yet scattered across barns, machine sheds, and farmyards from the Great Plains to the Corn Belt, thousands of agging tractors continue offering a quiet reminder that progress is not always measured by what replaces the old. Sometimes it is measured by what survives.